What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Nintendo Direct fever is in full swing now, as we're just a few weeks away from June, and yes, there is a new report going around about what you'd expect for, the month where all the stuff's getting revealed and what we typically expect from Nintendo in June, but we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Sony with a pretty significant hacking issue that has actually been ongoing for a bit, but was once again thrusted into the front of the news cycle when a prominent figure was actually hacked, and we have an idea as to how a lot of this stuff is kind of going on. And we have Yoshi and the Mysterious Book out this week with reviews going live that I think for many people went maybe a touch higher than they were expecting. All of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. Guys, we're every weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, going over the world of gaming news, trying to keep you up to date. So just know, even if there's not a notification in the morning, there's probably a video here to check out. And we're going to start today with another Square Enix demo that actually has saved data that'll carry over to the full game when it releases, and that's The Adventures of Elliot the Millennium Tale. This we can see over on Gamatsu, as they have the full rundown here with the press release from Square Enix. Of course, this game will be coming out June 18th, and that'll be on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, Switch 2, and PC. Square Enix does say that this is like the opening of the game, so you'll be able to enjoy the first chapter of the experience and even be able to do some of the just exploration around the world there that they have kind of walled off for that opening. I really like these demos that Square tends to do where they allow you to basically get started on the game early, in this case a month early, and the game has looked quite interesting because while it is using HD 2D, it's a bit more of an action experience as opposed to turn-based RPG or strategy RPG, so I do like that idea, and of course it's just an original experience in that sort of retro new age style. So pretty cool. I'll be looking towards that looking forward to that one for next month. But I guess maybe a week or so before, I'll download the demo and at least get started so I can transfer my save over. Also, we did have Forza Horizon 6 officially launched yesterday on the 19th, so we can see over on SteamDB just to get an idea as to where we are when the game is out for the more standardized price as opposed to the premium edition purchase. And it actually hit a concurrent player count high in the 24 hours of 273,148 players. This is just on Steam that's tracking, so you don't have Xbox added in here or Windows on like the Windows Game Store on PC or Game Pass. All of that, of course, playing into the overall concurrent player count, and that's more important, I would say, here than ever, since Forza Horizon does have microtransactions or post spend versus just that initial purchase price. So there is a lot to gain from them even just having players outright through Game Pass, because there's a lot of stuff you can buy in the game away from that. But still, it's a massive experience. I've been having a lot of fun with it, even just kind of cruising around, finding all the landmarks, or they put a lot of different things, boards or mascots and stuff on the map to find. There's just a lot of stuff to do while you're driving around and exploring Japan. So, I mean, I fully recommend it, even if you're not someone super into simulation racing, more thinking about even arcade racing, it's a blast to play. Oh, and we had kind of a weird situation around that Darksiders Warmastered edition with that upgrade for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series, because it's $10 on the PlayStation 5, but on the Xbox Series, it's free. Now, this seems to have to do with smart delivery on the Xbox versus just the upgrade path that's sold for the PlayStation 5, because otherwise, the game is just $30. Like, you can buy it on the digital storefront, but if you already own it, you can have your upgrade path done. And on Xbox or PlayStation 5, this bumps the resolution to 4K, of course, 60 frames per second, and adds a photo mode. It's just very, very odd to see this weird discrepancy of $10 on PlayStation 5, but free on the Xbox Series. It's leading to a lot of confusion, and they're not really necessarily explaining what the deal is there, so I'm not really sure. I mean, the game is awesome. If you've never played Darksiders, this first one, even being upgraded here, it is from the 360 era, but I think it still holds up fairly well. I think it's worth going through, but you definitely have to think about it a bit and go, oh, okay, $10 on the PlayStation 5, but free on the Xbox? What's the deal with that, THQ? And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo and an apparent direct that is in the works for June. Shocking, I know. This is the funny thing when I saw that pop up online, and it was, of course, headlines were popping up everywhere after this news was starting to make the rounds, based on, of course, the report and the sourcing for it. But it was enough to make me go, oh yeah, a direct in June, that makes sense. It's kind of expected. But it's also been expected to have maybe a general direct before June in the year, and you have to think and go, oh yeah, it's been 250 days or so since the last general direct that happened in the first half of September 2025. That's a while. It is. And we've had partner directs, we've had individual directs, we've had indie world directs. So we have still had presentations. How many did we have for the Mario movie? But we haven't had a general direct in quite some time. So I think that does have something to do with this, to where people are getting excited for the idea of a general direct that should just be expected in June, as it's been since like the E3 days, right? Well, we can see this. This is over on Nintendo Everything, saying, according to Giant Bomb's Jeff Grubb, a Nintendo Direct will air by the middle of June. In other words, if true, a presentation should be expected sometime within the next few weeks. Grubb shared that tidbit of information during the latest Giant Bombcast episode. He doesn't currently have an answer as to whether it will be a partner showcase or a full-on Nintendo Direct, but is currently assuming the latter. Oh, if that's a partner showcase, that's going to do some damage online. Again, it's been a long time since a general direct, and I almost wonder, I don't know if Nintendo's going to go to a position of one big general direct per year, and that being in June, because you tend to expect at least a couple of them, but Nintendo has been playing around with the idea of just announcing stuff even 10 minutes before, like they did with Star Fox, but even just announcing things on social media. So you just log on to Twitter X. Oh, okay, there's a brand new game that's coming out here in a few months. Nintendo Today, you open that up. Oh, wait, here's some new trailer for a game that has now been announced and coming up here soon. And so Nintendo is kind of doing this to where they are announcing games, and then the games come out pretty quickly after that. Even if it's for the mobile phones, where we just saw that game pop up, or application we just talked about yesterday, that's making WarioWare mini games out of your pictures. That just appeared online, and then Nintendo followed it up with a social media post to announce it. So I will admit, I do prefer the idea of a general direct where they have a bunch of announcements, it's just all crammed together, and it's just this explosion of information and announcements. I just think it's a lot easier, of course, to plan for, which makes it, just easier here, whereas, oh yeah, 10 minutes, guys, new Star Fox game. It's like, oh, I was not ready for that one. But since we are now expecting an Ocarina of Time remake based on some of the rumors from prior, and even Nate, he did say there won't be a direct, or don't expect a direct, until June, and here we are now, getting excited for the idea of a direct in June. So I'll give credit to Nate on this one. He said that back in March. Wasn't a popular thing to say. People didn't exactly like to hear that, but I guess he was right, at least for now. Again, the expectation, a direct in June, as we would figure, but it's a weird time for Nintendo, so who knows what they're about to do, but in this case, I hope they just stick with the more traditional mindset of big general direct, set up the rest of 2026 along with that Ocarina of Time remake, because I really want to see what that looks like, and even, I think, start setting up some breadcrumbs here for 2027 with a few things that they can, I'd say, expand on later. Just give people an idea as to what they can look forward to for this generation, since in June, we will have completed 1 year for the Switch 2 being on the market, and I wouldn't mind hearing about things that are coming up even a few years down the line. Next up, let's talk about Sony and a hacking issue that they have right now that's been ongoing, but was once again thrusted into the spotlight because Colin Moriarty was actually hacked and posted all this stuff online as it was happening, and we can see. Now, this is just the lead one that he posted, and there was like a series of replies from there, but bottom line, his PSN account was hacked, seemingly as part of an ongoing sophisticated series of moves against both random and prominent users. It seems like he was emailed about this. Like, someone emailed him saying, hey, just warning you, they have your information. They are going to try and take your account today. Okay, so what's the deal here exactly? Well, again, Colin did sort of expand on this in different replies, showing that when someone took over his account, whoever this was, even started sending messages, sent it to Dustin and gave him the Goldberg saying, you're next. That's kind of ominous there. But Colin was able to eventually get his account back, and as he mentioned himself, he did pull a lot of strings that most people necessarily wouldn't have access to, all right? Like, he was really looking around trying to get a hold of people to try to resolve this, but he was able to. However, again, this is something that has been ongoing, and I think a while ago it was sort of revealed as to how this happened, and I just want to put this out there for anyone just to at least warn you as to something you can try to avoid completely, but again, hard to say if this is all the information, as Mr. Pio did share this one, saying, only your PSN ID and one piece of old transaction data are needed by the hacker. So, for example, if they know what your PlayStation ID already is, and I mean, look, people just post them up anyway. It shouldn't be a big deal for people to know what your PlayStation Network ID is, since people will look it up or send friend requests, whatever, right? But if there is old transaction data, say a confirmation number, or I think just a transaction number, which sometimes people will post that. It's not any financial information like, oh, here's my credit card that I used to pay with it. It's just like a receipt. It's like, oh, I bought this game just now. And then at the bottom, there's some transaction number, right? Apparently, you can use that information, combine it together, contact Sony support, and then provide the information as proof of ownership. And Sony support system will bypass standard protocols and lets the hacker change email address, link to the account, and that will also disable two-factor authentication, which to me is absolutely absurd. So take Colin, for example. He just has his PlayStation Network ID, his username there in his bio, so people can very quickly and easily see it there, whether he wants to look up trophies or do friend requests or what have you. So they have half of that information, and then maybe there was some screenshot at some point or something where there was a transaction number that they're able to then use and follow through and completely take over his account. Now, because this was all going down, and again, a very prominent figure put this information out there, made a lot of noise online. His initial post had 800,000 views on Twitter X here. It seems like Sony did at least take notice of this. Again, he got his account back. I would like to think that Sony realizes, hey, maybe it's not a great idea to disable two-factor authentication, let someone just random through with just a transaction ID and the PlayStation Network ID that people freely will share around. So certainly something Sony needs to look into here, because while your digital library will be attached to that is a big deal. I do think there are people who have built up a massive library of trophy data, like just collecting a lot of trophies, even since you could say the PlayStation 3 generation, but also friends list. People have made a lot of friends on PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, Nintendo Switch Online, that is just through those games, and you kind of just lose your friends and everything from it. So yes, you are very much tied to your digital identity that way, but because of how paramount it is to, keep it locked down, Sony should probably take another look as to how exactly they're treating that when it comes to security. Next up, let's talk about Yoshi and the Mysterious Book. That is out tomorrow, but reviews did go live yesterday, and we can see over on Metacritic, currently coming in at an 81. That's on 73 reviews, and if we look at some of the different reviews that came in, VGC gave it 100, like a perfect score, saying Yoshi and the Mysterious Book powers along with the kind of breathless imagination typically associated with mainline Super Mario adventures, with new ideas and gameplay mechanics stretching across the margins of its pages. A brilliant, unique side scroller. That's the thing I've seen a lot of people mention. It's very unique in how it approaches sort of its gameplay and mechanics, just the overall setup. Some described it as a cozy platformer game, which I can only assume means there's not necessarily a sense of danger when you're playing the game, and a lot of it does seem to focus in on the puzzles themselves. All right, so we also see here, Well Played gave it a 90, saying Yoshi and the Mysterious Book is a brilliant, quirky experiment that proves being a dinosaur-shaped scientist can easily give traditional platformers a run for their money. If a cozy, unsupervised science fair full of eureka moments sounds like your jam, prepare your tongue for a new career in book-based ecology. Let's take a look on the opposite end of the spectrum here for the reviews. And we'll go over here to IGN, gave it a 60, saying Yoshi and the Mysterious Book is an undeniable delight with adorable storybook creatures that are amusing to learn about in your first surprise-filled encounters with them. But while there's impressive variety on display, it comes at the cost of depth. If we look at Nintendo Life, they also gave it a 60, saying there's a lot of fun to be had in discovering the many creatures hidden within Mr. E's pages, though it also suffers from a repetitive structure that doesn't evolve or provide any sense of meaningful challenge. They do go on to say that, hey, the visuals are actually very, very interesting and one of the highlights of the game overall, and I'd agree. Looking at it also being Unreal Engine is kind of interesting still to see Nintendo playing around with that, specifically with these Yoshi games. I think if anything, maybe playing it with the kids could be a lot of fun since doesn't have a sense of danger necessarily, and I guess getting game over screens or getting attacked by enemies as much. And I guess cozy platformer, more so using your mind when it comes to puzzles. I could see how that could play in very nicely to like a family setting or environment. But also I'm sure there are many people who just like the idea of maybe a cozy platformer, again, kind of being described, but also one that's a bit more unique. It's out tomorrow. I'm going to be playing Lego Batman, so maybe I'll check out Yoshi later on at some point, because after Lego Batman comes up to 007, and it's just, there's a lot of games, so you do kind of pick and choose based on your time. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Game Pass games to close out the month of May and then start up the month of June, we can see. Now, this is over on news.xbox.com. They do have a reminder here, Forza Horizon 6. That is out now. It is available in Game Pass. We can move up here to May 20th. All right, today, Dead Static Drive. That's cloud, console, and PC. My Friend Peppa Pig. There it is. I feel like that's coming back into the service. Although I don't know if this is a new Peppa Pig game. I feel like I've seen Peppa Pig in Game Pass before when I'm scrolling through. We have Pigeon Simulator, Remnant 2. That one is actually returning here because they also have it in Premium and then PC Game Pass. And then we have Winter Burrow. Moving up to May 21st, we have Luna Abyss, and then May 26th, Escape Simulator. May 27th, we have Echo Generation 2. On May 27th, we also have the Outer Worlds Spacer's Choice Edition. This also being added into Premium, and then we have PC Game Pass there. Crash Out Crew on May 28th, along with Kabuto Park. And on June 2nd, Final Fantasy VI. Absolute classic. If you have not played it, certainly worth checking out. But they've been doing this thing where it seems like every few weeks they add a new classic Final Fantasy game from that Pixel collection, and now you can experience all kinds of old school Final Fantasy games here in Game Pass. So if you want to go through some of the original Final Fantasies, you can with like a month of, well, you probably need more than a month of Game Pass to go through them, but it's cool nonetheless that they are available there, achievements, the whole thing. And then to round that out, June 2nd, we have Jurassic World Evolution 3. To me, the big one here again is Forza Horizon 6, having a blast with it, fully recommend it, especially if you have Game Pass. Yes, it is a big download, it's like 160 gigabytes. The game looks awesome though, there's a lot to do, and it's fun even again just to kind of drive around or collect cars. But because of that, it certainly anchors a good chunk of this list for Game Pass, and that's probably the one I would mostly recommend right now. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. We're asked, how do you feel about Sony moving back to exclusive status for their first-party single-player games? 66% say yes, they should be focusing on exclusive content for PS5. 34% say bad, they should be putting games on PC for more sales. And look, it's certainly going to be perspective, like personal perspective for this, since if you're just a PC gamer, all this is really saying is, hey, you're gonna have like less games technically being moved to your platform, especially since you may have a PC that's like really nice and just significantly better or more capable than the PS5 or the PS5 Pro. But let's say there is a big time game like Wolverine. Maybe you really want to play Wolverine. You were thinking, oh, in a year it'll come to PC. Doesn't really sound like that's going to be the case now. So then you would start to think about, oh, I really want to play Wolverine. Do I get a PS5? Do I borrow one from a friend to play this one game? How exactly do I make that work out? Or you just kind of move along and don't play Wolverine. But if you're someone who's on the PlayStation 5 and that's your like main platform that you're consistently turning to, you're probably excited at the idea of, oh, okay, they're going to be completely taking advantage of this one system and that's it. So they should be able to get a lot out of these games. So again, it's kind of back and forth depending on where you necessarily fall in the market. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Alan, who says, wild that 20 years ago, everyone was up in arms about console exclusives, and now we've gone full circle where we are demanding them. I have to think, 20 years ago was 2006. I don't know if people were up in arms about console exclusive. You know, maybe the Wii? I'm trying to think, 2006. Well, right now it'd be before the Wii and the PS3 are out, and back then it was pretty much expected that Mario would be on the GameCube, Halo would be on the Xbox, and you'd have things like Sly Cooper and stuff, Jak and Daxter on the PlayStation 2, or God of War 2. That was a big one when that got shown for the PlayStation 2. But I maybe 10 years ago, 2016, there was discussion of, man, should we be moving away from exclusive content? Because that's when Microsoft started to make the big push for PC. And I think what happened is we started to get systems, specifically for Xbox and PlayStation. Nintendo still kind of being weird with their configuration. We had boxes that were coming out that started to feel more and more the same. AMD, you know, they followed similar principles when it came to attaining their visuals and graphics on screen. Upscaling now is a big thing, ray tracing. And I think people are looking for identifying factors for their console, or the idea of taking advantage of bespoke hardware that was much more common back even during the PS3 or the Xbox 360 days. And that's kind of a thing of the past now, just based on the way that these systems are built. So I think because we moved away from that, people started to go, man, I kind of want the competitive nature of exclusives. That is a big thing that came with it. There was competition between these companies, specifically first, like these studios, showing what they can do with that one single piece of hardware, right? And so I think getting away from that, people are now longing for those days again. I don't know if we'll get it again with exclusives making return, if that all does happen across the board like people are hoping here at times, because the boxes still feel very similar in what they can achieve. But I guess we'll see, really going into next generation, how Microsoft and Sony are going to handle all of this. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to check out a feature for controllers that I think should be there, especially going into next generation. I did a video around that, and I'll leave it right below. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.